Hi, this is David with BestRest Products, home of the cycle pump tire inflator that has a lifetime warranty. Today I'm going to be talking about installing a pair of Cyclops 3.7-inch diameter LED driving lights on my BMW F800 GS. Now, I've already got a set of lights on here, rigid dualies, and they're pretty good, but they don't really go down the road as far as I'd like. By contrast, these Cyclops LEDs project down the road 870 feet. Compare that to a standard halogen high beam bulb, which maybe goes 200 feet. These lights are several magnitudes above any other light performance that I've ever seen. You can order Cyclops in a 10-degree spot, a 20-degree spot, or in this case I got a combination. I got a 10-degree for the left side of the bike to go down the center line of the road. I got a 20-degree to cover the side borrow pit, watch for critters at night, things like that. So I ordered the combo 10-20. I also ordered a handlebar switch so that I can control these lights using a handlebar switch, but I also ordered a product called a Skene, S-K-E-N-E dimmer, which gives me some programming features of these lights, and we'll talk about that a little later in the video. You can get clear covers that snap onto the face of these lights to protect them from rocks and other road debris. You can get them in clear, just straight clear, or you can get them with a faceted reflector or facets on the inside of the lens that convert the bulb or the pattern from a round spot to a flattened fog type pattern, and that's what I got in this case. These just snap right on, and I can take them off. I can convert this from amber to clear simply by removing the cover and putting on a different one. When you order your lights, you're going to get two lights in whichever pattern you desire. You're going to get a wiring harness. Wow, that looks kind of complicated, but it's really not. I'm going to lay it out and explain it to you and show you the difference between all the wires, how they hook up, and give you some options, including integrating the Skene dimmer module or program module that will allow me to adjust the amount of light that these are displaying when I'm on low beam. Now, why is that important? I'm riding along on high beam with these driving lights blazing down the road. Here comes a car in my direction and I have to dim my lights. So I flick off my high beams or flick off my Cyclops lights. Suddenly it's like I'm riding with a black bag over my head. My eyes simply can't adjust. Well, what the Skene dimmer allows us to do is to use these lights at a 10, 20, 30, 40, 60, 80%, whatever we want, on low beam. And then when I turn on the high beam, I have my high beam light, but I also have both of these Cyclops lights burning at full power. So once again, the purpose of the Skene dimmer is to allow me to use the Cyclops lights even when I'm on low beam. And I can also wire it up so that I turn the lights off entirely and they're not on at all whenever I'm riding the bike. I may want to use that when I'm riding in the woods. I don't need to illuminate or be conspicuous. So we're gonna do the work on the bike off screen, but right now I'm going to show you how the wiring harness works, the different options, the different switches that we can use, and we'll move on to that segment now. So we've laid out the wiring harness to try to make some sense of it. We have a relay. We have two wires going to the lights themselves. The connectors for the lights are very simple. This is called a Deutsch connector. It's a square connector that can only be hooked one way. Those get plugged in. The small yellow wires get plugged in. Bullet connectors. I've done that to both lights. I have two wires that are yellow that are not used in this particular application. They will in the next feature. I have a wire with a fuse that goes to the battery of my motorcycle. This fuse is 30 amps. The reason it's so high is not because the lights use 30 amps. They only use about 4. But a 30 amp fuse is much better for vibration. The heat of the fuse getting hot on a small fuse tends to cause them to fracture, so Cyclops put in a 30 amp to eliminate that problem. The 30 amp fuse does protect against some catastrophic failure of the system. There are two other wires that come from the harness, and at the ends of these wires they have ring terminals. So those are going to go to the negative battery or a very good ground on the motorcycle. Having a good ground is very important. And then we have one final wire right here. This wire is a switched wire. This has to go to something that turns on or off when you turn on the ignition. Let's say you hook this into a fuse block, or you hooked it into a tail light, or something that, that turns on when the key is turned. And once we do that, we have light. We turn off the ignition, the lights go off. Remember, this is a switched wire. But in my case, what I want to do is I want to use a handlebar switch. So I have a handlebar switch taped to my temporary handlebar. I connect the bullet connector. Again, this is a switched wire going to something that is controlled by the ignition, maybe a tail light. And now when I flip the handlebar switch, these lights go on. Turn it off, they go off. But note that these are running at 100% now. They've not been dimmed. In order for us to have the dimming feature, we have to use the Skene dimmer module, and I'll show that next. So now we're going to talk about using the Skene dimmer as part of this system. The purpose of the Skene is to allow you to use the lights at 100% power on high beam, but when you go to low beam, the driving lights drop down to a pre-programmed amount of power. So once again, I'm riding down the highway on high beam with both lights blazing. Here comes a car I have to dim. I dim my headlight switch. The lights drop down to a pre-programmed, let's say 40%. I still have my low beam on. The car goes past. I hit my high beam. The lights come on at full capacity. So the Skene's got 6 wires coming out. There's a yellow wire which is not used. I've just coiled that up and put it off to the side. There's a white wire which is going to go into my high beam headlight. I'm going to connect that to the high beam circuit inside the headlight assembly. Or I could do it on the outside, but I'm neat and tidy, so I'll drill a little hole and stick this inside. You notice that I've got some extensions on the wire so I can make the connections. I also have 2 black wires, and those black wires are going to have to go to a ground. They don't have to go to the battery negative terminal, they just have to go to ground. I have a blue wire, and this blue wire has 2 bullet connectors. And those 2 bullet connectors now connect into these yellow connectors of the main wiring harness that we didn't use in the previous switch configuration. So I plug those in. And I have one final wire, which is a red wire, which is for a switched circuit. Once again, something that when you turn on the ignition, like a tail light, this circuit gets energized. Because I'm also going to be using a handlebar switch, what I decided to do, and of course this is kind of cobbled together for this demonstration. There's my switch wire on the main harness. I have to use that. I'm going to connect these 2, connect this, and then this will be going to switched power somewhere on the bike. Even though we're connecting to the battery terminals, this is a switched wire system. So I have everything connected. Once again, my high beam headlight, my ground is black. I connect that to the ground of the frame. And I have my switch interrupter in place. Call it an interrupter for all purposes. I have everything connected, and now I have these lights burning on the programmed, in this case 40%. Now I go to use my high beam light. I flip my headlight switch to high beam, and as soon as I do that, those lights go to 100%. I dip down to low beam, and the lights drop down to the programmed, in this case 40%. If I want to totally turn these lights off, by virtue of this handlebar switch, I flip the switch, the lights go off. I'm running on high beam, 100% power. I'm running on low beam, 40% power. So now I'll show you how to program these lights using the Skene dimmer. It's very simple. If you're running just off the ignition, you turn the key on, the lights will come on. They'll flash quickly 3 times. You'll see that in a moment. They just flashed. Now I have 3 seconds after they flash to flick my high beam 3 times. And I'm going to replicate that. This is going to my high beam light, so it would be energized when I did it. So turn the lights on. They flicker 3 times. 1, 2, 3. And then I go 1, 2, 3. Now you saw they flickered 3 more times. Now I'm in program. So now by touching my high beam switch, I am adjusting the power in 10% increments. Now it went down to 0. There's 10%, 20%, 30%, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, 100. Now I want to set it at 40% right there. So once I've set it, I leave it alone, and in about 30 seconds, these lights will flash again. That tells me that the program has set. It has actually taken the program, and we're ready to go and ride. Now you can change this program throughout the day, depending upon your needs. Typically you wouldn't need to, but you could change it 10 times a day if you're a fiddly guy and like to change things all the time. So I'm on low beam. I'm riding down the highway. I hit my high beam light and the Cyclops light come on at 100%. I turn off my high beam, it drops down to 40%. I turn off my lights, or I turn off my ignition, the lights are not energized. I want to restart and reprogram. I turn on the lights. They flickered. 1, 2, 3. And they should have gone into program. They didn't. I think I was a little slow. Let's do it again. I turn on the lights. They flicker. 1, 2, 3. Now I'm in program. Now I would toggle the high beam again to get my percentage change, and as I toggle through my high beam, it goes 0, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, whatever I want it to be, depending upon my riding needs. And again, the importance of this is when you're riding with all the lights on and you have to dim the lights, especially as you get older, your eyes can't adjust to the change in light. So it's like somebody pulled a black bag over your head. This feature allows you to go from all this brilliance to a measured amount of brilliance. It meets the letter of the law, and you can still see, but when you turn your high beam back on, you're back up to 100%. So that's how it works. It seems complicated. It's really not. My counsel to you is when you get your lighting system from BestRest products, you lay everything out, you tape it out, you take some label makers and you label the wires so you know where they go. Because when you're doing this work on the bike, it can get confusing. Speaking of working on the bike, what we're going to do now is we're going to take this system and mount it on my bike. That probably takes the longest because I'm very finicky about how wires run, how I make the connections. I don't want to use the cutting type connectors. Instead, I want to crimp wires, I want to solder wires. I want to make sure that this is good and tight, that it's not going to fail because of vibration along the trail. But we'll make the change. We'll swap out these old rigid dualies. We'll put on these high-performance Cyclops LED lights. And as it gets dark later on, my buddy Steve and I will take it out and we'll show you the difference between the rigid lights on Steve's bike and the Cyclops light on my bike. So this is David with BestRest Products, home of the Cycle Pump Tire Inflator. We finished the install of the Cyclops driving lights. We were able to reuse the existing BestRest light bar. If you have a different bike, you'll have to get a light bar for that to mount these. These lights mount with a stud to the side, but they can be hung with a stud up or down in any direction. It doesn't matter how you mount them because the beam pattern is round. We've hooked it up using a handlebar switch, so I can turn the lights off completely and basically disconnect them from the system. We've tried it with the low beam setting. in low beam, when the bike is running, the lights are going to be running at the programmed amount that I put in. I put in 50%. When I go to high beam, my high beam comes on and the driving lights come on 100%. And as soon as I flip down to low beam, everything settles down. So let's turn the bike on for a moment, because the lights don't work on this bike unless the engine is running. I'm on low beam and I'm set at 50%. You saw the lights flash. They were expecting me to program it, which I didn't do. And there's high beam. I'm on high beam now. The driving lights are running 100% power. I go to low beam and they dim. So if I wanted to program, follow the instructions that I gave you earlier. Well, it's been an interesting afternoon. You know, when you're wiring a bike, there's always a lot that goes on. Getting the wires just exactly where you want, getting the wire length, crimping and soldering and things like that. Having a friend help you makes a big difference, but it went well. And we're looking forward for the sun to go down so we can go out and try these lights, compare them to a set of rigid dualies. This is David with BestRest Products. Thank you for watching. We'll see you on the trail. And stay tuned to watch the shoot-off on the lights. So here we are on a dark residential street. We've got two bikes side by side, my 800 GS, Steve's 650 GS. Both bikes have Cyclops LED headlights, but what we're really trying to do is show the difference in the driving lights. I'm going to turn on my bike. And right now, I'm on low beam. The driving lights are turned off. I turn on the driving lights on low beam, and it takes a second for them to go through their program mode. Now they're running at 50%. I can see all the way down to the intersecting street and see the trees in the distance. Now I switch to high beam plus the Cyclops driving lights at 100%. And the amount of light that I see and the detail that I can see down the road at 500 plus feet is just incredible. I go to low beam and the Cyclops driving lights drop to 50%. Again, high beam, now down to low beam with the Cyclops at 50%, and now I turn off the Cyclops driving lights. Now we're going to go to Steve's bike. He's going to start it up. And he's on low beam. He's running on low beam right now. Now he's going to switch to high beam. There's an increase in illumination. Now he's going to turn on the dually lights. And you can see that there is more light down the road, but it's not nearly as brilliant as what you see with the Cyclops. He'll switch off the dually lights. And now he goes to low beam. And he can cut. So what you've seen from this video is the incredible performance of Cyclops LED headlights plus the Cyclops driving lights. It is really truly night and day. The camera probably doesn't get the detail that the human eye can see. It is quite an improvement, and we hope that you'll put these on your bike. It'll be great for conspicuity during the day, and it'll be much better at night. We've had fun making this video. We hope you enjoyed watching it. You can buy the Cyclops headlights and the driving lights at BestRest Products, home of the Cycle Pump Tire Inflator. We hope to see you on the trail. Ride safe and take care.